I bought my first CD in 1990 and still enjoy buying them today. And recently, I stumbled on some weird and interesting facts about CDs that surprised me and wanted to share with you what I learned. Hi, if you're new here, my name is Aaron, and on my channel, I talk about my love of physical media, which I've been collecting for over 35 years now. I thought I knew everything about CDs until I stumbled on this and realized I was wrong. So today, I want to share with you these 10 weird and interesting facts about CDs, and hopefully we won't lose a finger in the process. Wait, ow, that's actually kind of sharp. Some of you might be thinking, wait, didn't Randy from Cheap Audio Man already make this video? And the answer is yes. And when I texted him and told him how great of an idea I thought it was, he said, you should make this video too. And I thought, surely there's no more interesting facts left about CDs until, like I said earlier, I stumbled on this. Now, there was a time when CDs became so popular, they were cutting them into shapes, called die-cut CDs or sometimes shape CDs if you're looking for them on eBay. Now, this is a split single between the Ramones and the New York Dolls. The Ramones doing Judy as a Punk and the New York Dolls, Human Being. I actually bought this on eBay specifically for this video. So there was a time, like I said, when these were so popular, they were trying to make them look more interesting rather than just your typical CD. So the big question is, and I actually don't know the answer to this, is will this actually play in one of my CD players? Let's go find out now. All right, let's see if this old Sony from the 1980s will play this disc. I have not even tried this yet. This will be the first time to see if this disc actually plays. Look at that, it does play. Turn that down so the copyright police don't come after me. But look, you can see right there. I think there's 2 songs on this one. Yep. There you go. Look at that. It actually does play. Another interesting fact about CDs that I forgot is that there was a time when they would release mini CDs. So here's your regular size CD and here's a mini CD. You can often find these available for sale online under 3-inch CD or 8-centimeter CD. Now these are often CD singles that only contained a handful of songs, and they were able to fit in some players, but other players you had to have an adapter. This is the XTC single King for a Day. And yes, I bought it simply because the packaging looks like a crown. My whole family's graphic designers. This is the kind of stuff we live for. So that's why I chose this one. There was actually more of these available on eBay than I expected, and they're actually fetching higher prices. I think I paid over 20 bucks for this one, but there were some cool REM ones and things like that. But again, we've got it in hand, and I don't know if it'll play. Let me see if I can find one of my older CD players that this will fit in and see if we can actually hear some music. One thing about these old CD players from the 80s is that you can see it's kind of got this indented tray, and guess what fits perfect right there? A little 3-inch CD. I don't know why that cracks me up so much. Let's see if this one will play. Yep, that one's playing too. And you know what's crazy about this one? Is it actually, I think, has 4 songs on it. Yeah, that's a lot of songs for such a little disc, but it's actually kind of cool that it fits right in there. You don't have to have any kind of adapter or anything like that. Like I said earlier, I've been collecting physical media for over 35 years now, and I don't really have a favorite. I really love everything: cassettes, vinyl, CDs, whatever I find that looks interesting to me. But this next fact that I learned about CDs, I'm going to blame that I didn't know this completely on vinyl records. So vinyl enthusiasts, I apologize. But I've been playing records since college, really, back when I could buy them for cheaper than CDs. And what do we know about when we play a vinyl record? Well, the first thing we're going to do is drop the stylus on the edge of the record, where the first song is. And it's going to track and play towards the center of the disc. Well, this is what I learned. A CD is actually the exact opposite. The first song is located here at the middle of the disc, and the laser mechanism that plays the CD actually tracks out to the outer edge of the CD. So your first songs on the album are here and the last songs are here. Now this is actually kind of important for me because I buy and resell physical media as well as collect it, and I have a store on Discogs, and I also have a booth in an antique mall at a store called Four Sisters Antiques in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. And oftentimes, if there's some light scuffs or scratches on a disc, I'll listen to it to make sure it doesn't skip. And for years, if there was a skip out here on the outer edge, or excuse me, a scratch on the outer edge, I would just listen to the first few songs on the disc, and if it didn't skip, I would think, oh, it's going to play great. I'm an idiot. I should have actually been skipping to the end of the album to see if those scratches would impact the CD or not. So, hey, you learn something new every day. CDs play from the inside out. What's the most important thing we want when we're playing our records and cassettes? Constant speed. We want our vinyl to be locked in at either 33 1/3 or 45 RPM, and we want our cassette decks to be playing at the proper speed to avoid them sounding too fast, too slow, or just bad in general. Well, I didn't know this, but I just learned that CDs actually spin at different speeds while playing. They play faster at the center of the disc, and they play slower at the edge of the disc. So, for all these years when I've been stressed out about making sure my turntable and cassette decks are playing at the proper speed, it turns out that's not something you need to worry about when playing CDs. Now, I hate to keep picking on vinyl and cassettes, but again, this factors into something that I sort of knew when I was thinking about CDs, but it really didn't sink home until I was making this video. And that is when a CD is being played and it is being spun around, what's reading the information on this CD is a laser. It's light being shot up to the disc and refracting back into the laser mechanism to read the information and turn it into audio output for our ears to hear. Well, that is different, obviously, than vinyl records and cassettes, which require something to actually physically touch it. Obviously, with a vinyl record, we're talking about a needle or the stylus on your turntable. And with a cassette, we're talking about the tape physically running over the playback head in order to be played it. So, unlike vinyl or cassettes, a CD doesn't actually have anything physically touching the surface in order for it to be played. Now, this leads into my next fact, which is kind of common knowledge, but knowing that nothing is actually touching the surface of the disc really plays into what was the main marketing material for CDs when they were first released, which is, unlike a vinyl record or a cassette, which has to have something physically touching it and potentially wearing down those surfaces in order to play it, in theory, a CD, because nothing's touching it, is not going to have any sound degradation that could potentially happen from something touching it. Because again, what we just said is a laser is shooting light that's refracting off of it, but nothing is actually touching and wearing down this surface. Unlike a vinyl record that's going to have a needle or stylus tracking through the grooves and potentially wearing that down, and definitely with a cassette, which we all know is going to have a degradation of sound over time as that tape runs back and forth over a playback head. So, just thinking more and more about that laser refraction here and nothing actually touching this disc, again, it gives it the potential for less sound degradation on a CD versus vinyl or cassette. Real quick, if you're enjoying this video and want to reach out to me directly via email, you could do so. All you have to do is click on the link in the first pinned comment of this video. That will sign you up to my email list, and once you confirm your email address, it will send you my personal email, and you can shoot me a line with any questions you might have. In the 1980s, a group of people got together and called themselves the Society of Professional Audio Recording Services, or SPARS, to develop a code called the SPARS code, which was a 3-letter code that could be printed on a CD package to let the consumer know what the recording process and mixing and mastering process was that went into the product they were about to buy. So the letters that were included were often A or D, analog or digital. And the first letter on the SPARS code stood for how it was recorded. So if it was A, it was analog. If the second letter on the code was for how it was mixed, either A for analog or D for digital. And then the last letter was how it was mastered. So for CDs, the last letter would always be D. So normally you would see something like AAD, which I'm not sure if you can see that, but this AAD code is right here. That means it was recorded in analog, mixed in analog, and then mastered digitally for a CD. There became a time, and I'll show you here in a minute, where there was 3Ds, where it was recorded digitally, mixed digitally, and even mastered digitally for CD. And I find this interesting because if you think about all of the musical formats that have been available for us, this is one of the few, CDs, where somebody actually got together and said it's important that we let people know what they're actually buying and what the source of the music actually is. And this has actually become a hot topic in the vinyl world, where people are spending a lot of money for vinyl represses that they find out might have just been ripped off a digital source rather than being a true analog process from beginning to end. So somebody saw this coming in the 80s and decided to do this. I think they stopped doing it in the mid 90s, or maybe they brought it back in the mid 90s. It's really not popular on CDs today, but if you're searching for used CDs and this information is important to you, then be sure to check out and just look either on the packaging or on the disc face itself to find out what that SPARS code is. What was the first album that sold 1 million copies on the CD format? That would be Dire Straits' Brother in Arms. Now, this was released in 1985. And like I said, it was the first album that was on CD that sold 1 million copies. Not necessarily the first album released, but the first one that passed that 1 million sales mark. Now, the reason why I think this is interesting with the SPARS code is because you'll see here it says this is a full digital recording. This is actually, I just got this in a lot of CDs I bought recently, so it's like a cheap, probably Columbia House or BMG, record club release. So it doesn't have the same valuable information that a SPARS code would be able to provide. But I have had other copies of this disc, and you flip it over and on the back it says DDD. One of the first albums truly recorded all digitally. So it was recorded digitally, mixed digitally, and mastered digitally for CD. But yeah, this was the first album that sold 1 million copies on CD. Whenever a format like CD gets as popular as it did and sold as many copies as it did over the years, you'll often find record labels start to want to figure out a way to monetize that even further. And one thing that I forgot but then remembered recently because I stumbled on these at a record store is that not all CDs play in a CD player. Case in point, this CD here, which is the Best of REM. This is actually not a CD. I also have a copy of Fleetwood Mac's Rumors, and again, here's a copy of it, and it looks like a CD. Should play like a CD, but if you put this in your CD player, it's not going to play. Why? Because it is DVD audio. You can actually see here on this sticker that it says this will play in DVD players, but it will not play in a CD player. I know that whenever you have to put this language on a sticker, it means that consumers were getting confused. Now, a lot of people probably remember DVD audio, and this is not that mind-blowing of a fact. There's a lot of newcomers to CDs that are getting into the hobby and going and shopping and buying these. And I kind of wanted to include this because there is a good chance that if you see a copy of Rumors, you just want to make sure what you're usually looking for is it'll say DVD audio. And oftentimes there's a sticker on there saying it won't play in your regular CD player. But just because it looks like a CD and walks like a CD and should play like a CD doesn't mean it's actually a CD. And honestly, the last interesting fact that I kind of remember but forgot about, and this is going to be the first obvious sign of when something has reached mass popularity, and that is people started making their business cards out of CDs. They shrunk the CD down into a version that they could carry around like a business card, and they would pass this out, and instead of just having a paper business card, which I don't even know how many people use those today anymore. But there was a time when business cards were, that was very, very important. And some people thought, you know what? I don't need just a piece of paper when I can take a CD. I didn't actually buy a CD business card for this video, but if you go looking around on the internet, you could probably find one if you want. I think oftentimes it would probably have some sort of information on the disc that you could put into your computer and then have that information, some sort of sales pitch or something. I'm not entirely sure, but I forgot about CD business cards. That's when you know things have gotten so popular that it's now being turned into a regular everyday item. If you think die-cut CDs and shaped CDs are odd, you should see what people are paying to buy rare collectible CDs. If you'd be interested in learning more about how much money some of these CDs are bringing on the open market, you can do so by watching this video here.